Hi guys, how you guys doing? I'm live for for the first episode of Thanks for Thursdays. That's what I'm calling my thanks uh, live thanks video. I'm starting to do every Thursday. This is my first episode. To be honest, I'm kind of nervous about it because I never did it, and it wasn't my idea, but I think it's a good one. The matter thought of it. So can we try this? Okay, so I'm doing Thanks for Thursdays. I just gonna think of things I think that I am thankful for. Um, First off, though, right off the gate, I'm thankful that the Wisemans adopted me. Um, God knows, I mean, yeah, it was hard. It's hard being like I mentioned in my last video. I don't lead with this a lot, but my dad was relatives with Jesse James on his mom's side. My dad's mom's name was Frances James, and I don't know about relatives enough to know if my dad's mom was second cousins to Jesse James, and or if my dad was second. But I know that my dad was close relatives with Jesse James on his mom's side, and then on his dad's side, my dad's grandpa was Sir William Wiseman of the Committee 300. So these are high stakes people and high society people that adopted me and gave me the life that I not only had growing up, but probably, I'm sure, led to the life I have now. I would not have had that if they hadn't adopted me. I make a lot of trouble about how he hit me and all that, but first of all, he's not hitting me now. He because of him adopting me, my mom, I'm even here, or even have I just have a feeling that they really did me a huge good thing by adopting me. It would have not been, it would have been worse if they hadn't of. And I just have a feeling of that. I can't prove that, but that's my feeling. That as bad as it was being the son of James Rex Wiseman Sr., it would have been worse if they just never would have adopted me. It would have been worse for me, I have a feeling. So I'm thankful that my parents adopted me. And on top of that, I'm thankful that my natural parents didn't abort me. I could have been not here for that reason. My natural parents, um, in the movie The Doors, Oliver Stone's movie, um, Val Kilmer plays my dad, Jim Morrison, and Val, we miss you. I don't usually go on about actors. I'm a musician, not an actor, but if any actor is a rock star, Val Kilmer is as good of a candidate as anybody. He was a great actor. I'm sorry he died, but he played Jim Morrison. And in the movie, they're discussing an abortion, but it's with the Catherine Quinlan that plays Patricia Keneally, who can't be my mom because they didn't meet until '69 or something, and I was born in '66. But that doesn't mean that Jim and my mom didn't discuss abortion either. It doesn't mean doesn't mean the movie meant, that any son of Jim Morrison may have been considered for abortion, and I might have been considered to be aborted, and I'm glad I wasn't, because I'm still here because of that. So both my sets of parents, and even if I'm not Jim Morrison's kid, I still was also not aborted by whoever my parents were, and that still might have been considered, whether I'm Jim Morrison's natural son or not. So either way, I'm glad that my natural parents, whoever they are, Jim Morrison or otherwise, or one of my parents, Jim Morrison, or my not aborting me, and my adoptive parents for adopting me. I don't know. I'm just really thankful for that. Don't think this is weird, but I'm thankful for just the Goldilocksness of the earth, the way that we're just in the right, things worked out just right for life to be here on earth. Case in point, the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon by, I forget exactly what, I haven't studied this, that's just what I know. My phone just flipped. I've heard this. I don't know. I haven't studied this, so I don't know what the actual context of it is. But I've heard that So I'm not sure if it's the radius this we're talking about here, or if it's the area or the volume. But in one relevant way or another, the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, and yet the moon is 400 times closer to the Earth than the sun is. So since that's distance, maybe it's the radius. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But the moon and the Earth are just the right size / position relative to us that they're the same size in the sky. In other words, we have an eclipse because the moon and the sun appear to us to be the same size. And I think that's a very, very lucky coincidence for us for some reason. I'm not sure what all the ramifications would be if that weren't true. I'm not sure. We haven't studied that, but I'm just glad that it works out that the sun and the moon are the same size in the sky because of this 400 thing. The moon being 400 times closer, but the sun being 400 times bigger. There's just a lot of good, a lot of things about the Earth that were unlikely for a planet made life possible here. I'm not an expert on geology or history, or whatever science would be relevant here. But I don't know, the fact that we have breathable oxygen on this planet, the fact that we have water on this planet, that's huge, like unlikeliness compared to just any old rock in the galaxy. It had to be just, and people point to that being possibility of a creator, and there's nothing wrong with that thought, but it doesn't prove that the Bible describes that creator correctly, or that the Bible is true simply because there was a creator or might have been a creator. There's a bunch of logical leaps that Christians make that I don't buy. But that doesn't mean that but even if I'm right, doesn't mean that something didn't create this Earth with the coincidences that are there that make it extraordinary, just right for life to be here. There's merit to the argument that didn't happen by accident. That does not prove the Bible's true, but that's not my point right now. I'm just thankful that all these things are true for Earth and that life is possible here. That's the second thing I'm thankful for. And I'm just going with the flow here. I'm not an expert at this. I'm not usually. Whenever we'd sit down at my family to pray for Thanksgiving, I don't know. I always felt like if it was my turn to say something, all that meant was I'm on the spot now. Look out. I didn't think of it as talking to God. I thought of it as giving a speech to all these people listening to me. Fortunately, I'm good with words, and so I usually did great. That's funny. Isn't that funny? I would go into churches, and if it's time to pray, I just put my heart in what I'm saying and divorce it from whether or not I believe in God, and just talk about what I really want and feel and like, making God not really the point. And I almost always, people love my prayers. I mean, I know how to pray. I just don't believe it's the same God I'm praying to as what they're saying. But if I divorce myself from that and just pray as if I am saying it to somebody I actually believe in, I'm pretty good at praying, actually. It's funny. What else? I at least need to think of another thing I'm thankful for. What else? Let me think. I'm thankful for some of the coincidences in math that show that there's logic to the universe. And I'm not trumping my own thought here. I'm not doing this on purpose just to promote my idea, but I'm thankful that Wiseman's formula is actually true, that 3 cubed plus 4 cubed plus 5 cubed equals 6 cubed. That's a beautiful, and I'm thankful for Euler's identity, e to the I pi plus 1 equals 0. There's people have actually become Christians because of math, because of the high orderliness of numbers. It's just mind-boggling sometimes. Some of the coincidences in numbers that suggest that a God made the numbers. I don't know. I'm not, that's getting into the fringe of provability here, or whatever. But I'm just grateful that some of the coincidences in numbers and math and science are true. I'm grateful that the strong nuclear force holds the nucleus of atoms together for whatever reason. Some people say that proves there's a God, but whether that's true or not, because of the strong nuclear force holding the nucleus of atoms together, matter can even exist, because it shouldn't, according to electromagnetic theory. A bunch of protons shouldn't just be clustered together to make a nucleus of an atom, which is necessary for matter to exist. Does that mean God puts those together? No, no, it doesn't. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that something doesn't hold them together, and doesn't mean that something might be God. Okay, doesn't prove that God does that, or then therefore that there's a God. But I'm grateful that whatever happens, I'm grateful that that's the truth. Otherwise, you would have random particles just flying around. I'm not even sure you'd have them at all, to be honest. I don't like that phrase, to be honest. It sounds like you're not going to be honest later. But I don't know if anything would exist if it weren't for the strong nuclear force, because maybe the protons only exist because they're together. And I'm not a modern physics guru, so. But just the fact that the atoms exist due to at least in part due to the strong nuclear force, I'm grateful for that. That's gonna move knock the phone down. That's three things. I don't, and I hope you're not thinking, Jimmy's not. I mean, I'm just doing my best here. I'm not. I mean, it's not my habit to sit down and say things I'm thankful for, so I'm doing my best. Anything else? That's three things. I'm grateful for DNA. DNA. I forget what it's nucleic acid. It's a beautiful chemical compound or whatever they call it in chemistry that makes life possible as well. I mean, there's just there's so much beauty in math and science that makes life possible if you just study it a little bit. Look at Stephen Hawking's book, A Brief History of Time, and Carl Sagan used to do a thing on the cosmos that was really cool, and Leonard Nimoy, that played Spock on Star Trek, had a series called In Search of. He was the host of that. There's just so many cool things about truth and reality that are so interesting and fascinating, and also necessary for us to be here. And I'm grateful for all those. Whatever is behind that is not the topic right now. I'm just grateful that some of that stuff is true. What else? I gotta think of one more thing, I think. Let me just try here. This may sound corny, but I'm grateful for our capacity to love. People have the ability to love. That might not be true. There might have been something that could have stopped that from being true. How we can love, and even other species like dogs. Dogs can sense things, and children can sense things, and that proves that we can too. It just proves that maybe we're out of practice at it, or have been conditioned not to be able to. But dogs and children really sense. They have a sense of love, and when I walk by a dog and someone's walking their dog, and I just vibe with the dog a lot of the time. The dog looks at me and kind of feels like it wants to go home with me. But of course the owner says, "No, you're my dog," and I don't want the dog. That's good. I don't want the dog coming home with me. Their dog, not mine. But the dog senses goodness or love, or loves me, which is goodness for me. And the fact that we can share love with each other, whether even other species like dogs, is really cool. It probably keeps us hanging in there as a species, because if we didn't have love, war would take over altogether. That's all we would be. We would just be war. We would just be hate. We'd just kill each other off in a few days, probably, or something. I don't know. But love keeps us intact. Love keeps us from destroying ourselves in a heartbeat, is my feeling. As bad as the world is, at least we have love. So, without that, we likely would not even be here at all. World War II was horrible. 9/11 was horrible. Thanks, George Bush, LOL. But those things didn't lead to our extinction because there was a finiteness to it. We didn't bomb the whole world. We didn't 9/11 the whole world. And even though there's great evil, i.e. George Bush, i.e. whoever started World War II and whatever, the atomic bomb and all that, there's great capacity for evil within the human species. But because of love being there as well, I have a feeling it keeps us intact at all. You know, why didn't World War II just destroy the whole planet? Well, enough love existed to not let that happen, even though enough hate did exist for 2 cities in Japan to be bombed with nuclear bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I think those are the 2, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, something like that. Yeah, I mean, there's enough bombing to prove that that's possible, that we could just destroy ourselves, and yet there's enough love to keep us together so that we don't, or at least haven't yet. Love you guys. Peace, love, and rock and roll.